So first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you to our guests that have accepted our invite. We choose the shape of innovation as a title for this panel because with these two designers, we're talking of innovation a lot. From a design point of view, of course, from a technological point of view, and also ideological, if we have to be honest and complete about it. First of all, I wanted to briefly introduce you. So we have Jordan and Luca Marchetto from JORDANLUCA. It's a brand started in 2018, merging Italian menswear with the energy of London, and of course flipping contemporary menswear concepts to suit a new generation of transgressive men, maybe, okay? And from 2021, they also started doing women's wear. So it's your ideas of menswear and women's wear really came out. And about HELIOT EMIL, here we have Julius Jules. He actually managed the brand with his brother, Victor. And they debuted with the first collection in 2017. And they are pushing the semantic dialogue within the creative industry with new technology, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the first question, okay? What does innovation mean to you?
I think it was interesting thinking about listening to our introduction here, and I think what was interesting, he mentioned, the one way to work, the one way that you think that fashion is going to work, and what happens when I think, particularly when we have interns, for example, they have an expectation of what the industry is, and when they come, they think, but some of them just don't last because they don't understand that it's just not what they thought, that's not what they were told. And I think that really is the essence of what we're talking about, because we have to keep changing the way that we think and the way that we work. And what happened last year might not happen. What worked last year may not probably won't work next year. And so we need to keep moving. We need to innovating with technology, but of course because of sustainability and fabrications and technology, but particularly with the way that we think and behave.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think we were discussing our sort of backgrounds before as well, and it's interesting that you see more and more people who are coming from a non-traditional fashion background making their way into this industry because there is, let's say, a need for new perspectives and new ways of seeing the industry, and that's what people are looking for. I think obviously with the introduction of social media having such a dominant presence, there's a lot of new ways to do things, and there's a lot of ways to see the concept of fashion than before. So I think that opens up some different perspectives, and it opens up an opportunity for people to come in and let's say think outside the box of what the traditional landscape of fashion looks like. And I love your example of like the interns coming in and having like an expectation of what the traditional fashion setup looks like, and then them being surprised with like, oh, it's not the experience of someone that I heard of, that they had. And I love that, like things are shaping as they go, and things are adapting to a changing industry. And I think that that's super important, that you innovate within the industry and continue to see things from new perspectives, both from a technological perspective, but also just a way of seeing how things can be done and what we can do to positively improve the industry.
That's true, absolutely. I really wanted to delve into a little bit in your background, okay? So, of course, Jordan, you have worked with the crazy hat maker Stephen Jones, and you, Luca, you worked with Vivienne Westwood for a long time, right? And I read an interview in which you said that you were an image struck you that was this guy sleeping on the tube wearing trainers under his suit, and you thought that it was like a collusion in it, in a sense that the Italian tailoring with the crazy way of living of London.
Yes, because I studied here in Milan in 2006, so quite long ago, and talking about how fashion is evolved as well. Fashion changed so much. I mean, it's the point of fashion, right, to change all the time. But at the same time, the way that we consume fashion changed. When I was studying fashion, we had to buy those collezioni magazine. It was the only tool that we had to see the show. Now you see them live. In my time, you have to wait 3 days before they got uploaded on YouTube. So it's completely changed the way we consume in fashion. And when I moved from Milan, I lived in Milan 8 years. And Milan at my time was very fighetta as a thing. Still is, but is improving a bit. But at my time, if you wouldn't wear Prada, you were wearing Jill Sander, you couldn't go out from these two brands. And you always have to be perfect. And people it's a big city, but at the same time it's small enough that you can go home in the evening and change and refresh and see your friends after. In London, you can't. If you have someone living on the other side of London, you will never see, you're gonna see them once a month. Because it's a city that doesn't allow you to do that. So when people leave the house in the morning, they need to carry on everything that they need for the rest of the day. So when I moved to Milan, I remember that the first day I took the tube, there was this guy, and he was wearing a suit with his trainers on, which now it's fine to wear suit with trainers because of Balenciaga, because of this trend, but 2009, it was a thing. Yeah. And he was in the tube shaving with the battery thing, and I was shocked. But at the same time, as what made me fall in love with London, because it's like, this is the thing, it's like London, it's like a bit of a jungle, and you really have to survive in that city. And I love the struggle to survive. And
that's probably why you work in fashion.
That's why I work in fashion, yes. And that's why I'm still there after 16 years. But yeah, that's for me was a big shock. From Milan to London, that was the big shock. And that's why I said that in the interview about this guy shaving in the tube.
Love it. And for you, I read the story, absolutely interesting. The bet during COVID, that part.
The what during COVID?
The bet during the COVID.
The bet?
That you put the order and you weren't sure that the fabrics are going to open.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things happened during COVID that nobody could have predicted. And especially for the fashion industry, because there were so many things that were turned upside down. We were used to having these big gatherings, the big runway shows, the big fashion weeks, like all of these things. And also just the way, like Luca mentioned, the way that we consume fashion changed completely, and how we used fashion, like what is it? Is it, a way to express yourself on a night out, or is it something that you put on your social media to build your personality, or what is this behavior of fashion? And I think during COVID that was all like up for question. So I think a lot of interesting things happened during COVID. And I think also very few people could have predicted the rise that we also saw in the fashion industry. Obviously, there were a lot of, let's say, different brands that had a down, but also some brands that made it through that hump and was able to, let's say, look at some of the possibilities that COVID also opened up for. And especially this thing of like people sitting at home and not having that much, let's say, opportunity to get exposed to fashion through their surroundings. So if you had like something that was interesting on social media platforms, you could really gain a lot of popularity during that time. So yeah, I mean, we grew a lot during COVID, and I think we were we were both lucky, but also saw an opportunity of like speaking more directly to the community through those channels that they were engaging with in that time. So yeah, it was an interesting time, and I think definitely something that will be, you know, like a pinnacle when we look back at the history of fashion. It will be something that changed the way that we saw the industry, you know, in ways.
I think in many ways, I feel like we're having a renaissance of that time. The great leveler, you know, the burning to the ground of what we thought we believed in, what we thought we knew. And I feel like in a way we're having another one of those times because of the retail landscape at the moment. And I think we can't talk about being in fashion today without talking about what's happening with the market. I mean, and not just for us, but I know for everybody across industry-wide, there are a small percentage of brands that have really boomed, like you talked about during COVID in the last few years, but not many. It's a very, very difficult time because and we're talking the overspill of COVID, but we're talking about recession, we're talking about war, and I think you can't talk about working in fashion and innovating without talking about what's happening. And I think it's an interesting point you made about COVID because it does really feel like that again in many ways.
Absolutely agree. And of course, we are going to delve later about it. So the first topic I wanted to introduce is innovation from a technological point of view. I wanted to start with you, Julius, because it's actually the core of your brand, maybe a little bit, right? So Alan Turing's paper, that was your inspiration last time, and you merged the AI creativity with yours to see what was going to happen, and also to put out the question, what is real, what is fake, what does it mean to be fake in a way? And I think that this was an interesting experiment. And also, you said that the result of it was that AI model can create things, but only about replication of past things, right? So they cannot create nothing new in a way. So my question is, like humans in this society, in this industry that looks really saturated and looks like everything has been done, are we able to create something new? That's a difficult one, I know.
Deep. What is new? I mean,
What is
everything that's here was already here, you know? It's just combined in different ways. People think that the buildings that they see around them are, you know, coming from something out of nothing. You know, all the materials, all the things that we're building all these new things with, they were already here. They're just combined in ways that we maybe didn't know or expect from the beginning of when we were here. So I think when we're talking about AI, obviously this is like a landscape that's completely changing constantly. There's so much both interest and funding and everything being put into this industry. So obviously it's evolving at an enormous speed. But in its essence, it's a language model that can take things very fast and put them together for you in that context that you're giving it. So what I mentioned was like, it's not going to come up with this very abstract and out of the box way of taking something that doesn't belong in this context. It'll dive into, unless you ask it to specifically do that, it's going to dive into an area, and then it's going to take all of that context in that area and then give you the best solution for that. But it's only learning from what we've already been taught. So it is difficult to directly innovate with AI in mind. I think when I did the collection based on Alan Turing, I think he was in part, you know, like he was a pioneer. We're talking like this is 1960s, like 50s. And he was looking at, you know, like what will it mean if machines can behave like humans? And then he was starting to think about, what is it being human? What constitutes as being human? How do we define consciousness? And obviously it's a philosophical question, as well as it is sort of like a, let's say, a mathematical question as well that can be defined. But it's still to this day something that people are speculating over. What does it mean to have consciousness? And does it imply consciousness when AI behaves like a human? And if they can trick people into thinking that they are humans? Yeah, and this, like, throughout the 80s and throughout the revolution and like all of this introduction of artificial intelligence, this was continuously the answer that these computer scientists, they were trying to solve, was like, how do we make something that can behave as a human? But then again, like, what is it being human? So they were just trying to trick other people into thinking that it was human, and thereby saying that, oh, okay, now it is human because we've tricked people into thinking it's human. And that was sort of like, it became the Turing test, they call it. And that was what we wanted to do from a fashion perspective, and seeing blending in things that were created with AI, with real things that we had done, and seeing if people could determine which one is real and which one is created by AI.
And they did? They could tell?
I mean, obviously I could tell, but I think a lot of people could not tell.
Okay.
I will say that we still have stylists that are requesting pieces that are completely created by AI. So that's obviously very interesting.
Absolutely.
Having people ask if we can support them with this dress or that dress when it's like not real, in fact.
Well, a lot of questions about the future, right? So, again, talking about the algorithm, I also saw in your design this idea of repetition, right? Like the double shirt collar, like the knicker, three knickers, etc. So there is an idea of recollection, there is an idea of repetition that makes it a little bit close to the algorithm, I think, or to how social media works in general, right? Mm-hmm. So what's your take on this?
I think going back to your question, if there is something that can be truly new, is still something that I ask myself every day, because, you know, I think if something can be possibly new, I don't think we'll ever realize is new, because we are so quick today of how we devour all the images. You know, like now there is Fashion Week, is already gone. So all this work of all these designers that they did for 6 months, all these pieces, that even if there is some newness in them, who cares? It's Paris Fashion Week tomorrow, isn't it? So you constantly devour this, and I think how we scroll the image on Instagram as well. You know, like now if you want to catch some customer, you have to develop a way to make them stay longer on your pages, to look more at your post, and all these things. You know, you need to completely change the way you're doing things. And you know, and this is part as well translated in our design. When we did the boxer and the underwear with the triple elastic, which is our bestseller, there was this idea of speed and consumerism, and you know, and more is more. That you don't want one, you want two, you want three. So you have all these underwear on you, and that was the concept of the underwear. So, and this is the same concept of the shirt. You know, you want to be more professional, more this, more manager, more money. So 1 shirt, 2 shirts, 3 shirts. You know, so we always like to play with this idea of taking the piece a bit of what's happening and translating it a bit on the design.
It looks like a little bit like an anti-capitalistic critic in a way. Could be.
Yeah,
joke,
could be.
maybe.
Could be. I think JORDANLUCA is a pop brand. you know, and I like to think like that, you know, because I think we are living in a pop culture right now, and or maybe the pop culture is back. I don't know, but I think it's very important those days to be pop. You know, like you can't just sit in your studio and just think designing things, because I think fashion is already a bubble, and then your studio is a bubble in the bubble, and your head is a bubble in the bubble in the bubble. So, you know, you really need to try to come out of that and look at your brand from a distance and understanding the world, what's going on. And this is what I mean by being pop. That's popular.
And regarding that, would you tell me more about your most viral item, the pea-stained jeans?
So that was a moment for us, for sure, and it's something that has been very interesting, because we did those jeans 2 years ago during an autumn-winter collection, and you know, and that collection was about capitalism and consumerism and all this stuff, and we had this idea of constantly the concept of buying and selling and money and all these things, and we say, can we sell some? You know, there is a market of that, of people selling dirty underwear, yes, and making lots of money out of it. So the concept is, can we take that into a platform that is as chic as Milan Fashion Week, and try to propose that item? And we did those piece jeans at the time as a fetish thing, and nobody realized that they were in the show. And honestly, I was a bit disappointed, because I thought, fuck, if we go down the runway a model with pea-stained jeans and nobody look at them, then you can do everything you want today and it's gonna be fine. And you know, and it's fine. I accepted that. But then when they come out, I just realized that people didn't really notice them. that was the thing, because that thing exploded one day. I remember Jordan told me one day it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and he told me, oh, the New York Post just posted them. And I said, okay, cool. But then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was already a thing, and I was thinking, well, it's gonna stop. But then it didn't stop, and it became even bigger thing. And then the great things about the pea-stained jeans is, you know, because it's just not too long after the Balenciaga teddy bear thing, right? So I think the great thing about it is the fact that we didn't upset anyone. And I think this is the power of them, because we just made a big question with these jeans. The pea-stained jeans is a big question. It's a question about taste, it's about money, it's a question of, you know, we sold them out, the one that we had, and people are saying, why people are buying 800-pound jeans with piece on them? So it completely made people question and bring on the table all these people, all these historian of fashion, all these amazing people that we never talked with them before in the fashion industry. They all come forward, and you know, and at that point, we had to decide what to do with them, because it was growing. And by the way, something very important to say, I think me and Jordan were very strong people, because when you get a moment like that was that kind of viral, because we have 5 billion visualization, those jeans had more visualization than the Jennifer Lopez dress. So they literally broke the internet, and you know, and
I prefer those jeans to the Jennifer Lopez.
Yes,
I can say
but you need to be prepared, because you need to be prepared the wave of comments that are coming on you. You know,
of course, absolutely.
So you need to be very strong with this viral moment come, because they question everything about you, and you know, you have people, and you let people telling you everything. And you know, and we found it very funny, because even the people that were very angry with us, they could get angry to a certain point, because we didn't offend anyone. An amazing article said people are just fluffing their feathers. And that was the strength thing, because we're pissing people off. People were getting more angry about them, and they were talking more and more and more. And what happened, people wanted these jeans more and more and more and more. We were having requests for these jeans, and we say we don't sell them, because I thought let's sell the one that we have, because we have those jeans available in our platform since that collection, the one that we didn't sell yet. So we sold those one, and then we say we don't sell them anymore, we don't produce them anymore, and we let them grow the value of them, because now of course there are requests from collectors and all this stuff, and now the first sample that we did, the one in the catalog, is going to end up in an amazing fashion museum. So I think it's a very, very end of the story of these jeans. And you know, I grew up, as soon as I understood I want to do fashion, and as soon as I kind of understood what this is about, I fell in love with the punk look. And you know, I dressed like a punk. I wanted to work for Vivienne Westwood. I worked for Vivienne Westwood, and you know, for me to be the brand. Now I'm trying to talk from try to detach myself from the brand and looking from outside, yeah. But if they would have told me when I was studying fashion that one day the whole world would know me because of some pea-stained jeans,
You would love it.
that they cost a fortune and we sold out, I think it's so fucking cool.
It is.
So I think it's been a very good thing for us.
And also the choice to not make any more of them. It's a strong choice, actually.
Yeah, it's very strong.
Well, I think
And
I mean, we can talk about. I know that we're going to probably talk about this more, but I think there is this. We're in this kind of dichotomy, with all being consumers, all being part of the capitalist problem and the structure. So wanting to sell, but also wanting to protect an idea, wanting to keep some authenticity to what you're about, and not to try to oversell. So it's a very difficult, especially as a new brand, you know, as a fairly young brand. It's quite a difficult path to tread. To not to try to sell too much, to oversell, but try to survive and retain some authenticity with your ideas and in some integrity.
I think that was a great choice, actually, and it was not banal at all, because you could have made more money from that. So.
Well, this is interesting because, for example, when we did this, we had this viral moment just before the January show. And of course at the show more people came, more press came, and it was a better show because of that moment before, right? But what shocked me was every single interview that we had backstage, everybody was asking why you didn't do pea-stained jeans in the catwalk. And I was a bit shocked about it because I thought, wow, so boring. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what it is.
But it doesn't say that about everything about what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's just like
you're as much part of the problem that you're talking about as everybody else.
Exactly. You know, I was like, wow, really? Because I just did that and I just do that. You know.
That's true. That's the problem also with virality of social media.
I mean, and we're all part of. I mean, it's really clear we're all part of the problem as well, because us, as much as everybody else, want to move on and want to see something new. So, talk about newness, but here we are. You know.
Absolutely. So, to talk about newness, what's your approach to design? How do you make it new? And I love your take on technology and technological materials and the kind of research you do. Can you tell me a little more about this, because it's absolutely insane?
Yeah. I'm so soaked up in the conversation over there, but yeah, definitely. I mean, we spend a lot of time diving into different industries and seeing how those different industries, they can influence the way that we think about fashion. Like we attend a lot of different fairs that are outside the scope of the fashion industry. So you have the traditional fashion fairs and fabric fairs and those things, but for me, it's more interesting going to an outdoor fair where there's new fabrics for hiking or mountaineering or tents or whatever it might be, or delving into what's happening in robotics or in 3D printing or whatever it might be, and then seeing what can we learn from these industries and how can we apply it to fashion. So I'm a very, very big fan of technology and innovation. So it's something that I consume a lot of outside of fashion. So, that obviously influences the way that I also look at fashion design and seeing how I can take some of those things and apply them to the fashion industry. So that's in a lot of various ways. Right now we're working with something called new Newtonian fluid. So it's like a specific material that hardens upon impact. So it's used very much in protective gear, or like also in bulletproof vests and those kind of things. And it has this amazing ability to be completely fluid when you're working with it, but as soon as you impact it, it completely hardens up. And I think that there's something interesting about that fabric. There's like an interesting perspective to, let's say, a philosophical way of seeing your own personality, that you can be very soft, but as soon as you're like approached, then you might harden up. And I think that there's not only technical uses for this, but maybe there can also be a bit of something that makes people think about what do the fabrics say about themselves, that what they're wearing. So yeah, I mean, it's something that we came across when we were working with Alpine Stars, who is an Italian manufacturer of protective gear. They're the leading manufacturer for Formula One, for the MotoGP, all of these places where you see a lot of innovation when it comes to textiles and when it comes to garment construction and those things, and from a way more of a technical perspective. And you don't see that much innovation within the fashion industry. It's more from a philosophical, or maybe like a shape and like a feel. Maybe, you know, there's various fabrics that you can cross the boundaries of like how to use them. Making a leather suit, which is not something that's traditional, or making, you know, like a furry tech jacket or something like that. Those are kind of the ways that you innovate within the fashion industry. But when it comes to textiles and like real sort of technological advancements, I think that other industries are pushing the boundaries a bit more, because there is a pure technical need for those fabrics to exist, and not just like let's say a more metaphorical or philosophical ways that we usually see in the fashion industry.
That's absolutely true. I think that global warming is gonna make us rethink that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously,
very quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things being done in sustainability, and I think that's also a great thing, where fashion should be the leader and should be paving the way for what's accepted in terms of production and what's expected from, you know, the brands in general. And I think we as fashion designers should set the bar quite high, so that the people will be enticed by sustainability and sustainable manufacturing solutions, and not just accept whatever way of manufacturing can get you the visual perspective. And I think that as soon as we set that bar quite high, the rest of the, let's say, the following industry, the fast fashion, the main consumers, and they will eventually follow.
I mean, fashion is, it's interesting what you're saying, because, you know, I've shared about this many times. I've talked about this quite a lot, but fashion is the first industry that people visually see as the first thing that, you know, the fashion show is, just by nature of it, it's always 9 months to a year ahead of when it's in store.
Of course.
So I think we have a duty and responsibility to innovate and to shape what the future looks like, because we can change it from within, and I absolutely think we have a responsibility to do so.
Yeah, that's true. And a way you both change the industry in a better way, according to me, is the fact that you're enhancing a lot the idea of mental health and the importance of mental health nowadays, of course. So you did something that was actually really cool. It was like a blocking system for the phone,
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Another fabric that came from outside of the fashion industry, we worked with a company called Shieldx. They're a Swiss company. They work with metallic infusions of textiles. So they're quite big in, let's say, the military industry, the health industry. Metallics have a natural ability to be antibacterial and to be signal blocking. So within space exploration and that world, they're used for blocking certain rays and radiations. And within like the healthcare industry, they're also used for some of the same purposes as well. But it also has a function of blocking signals for your phone. So we created a pocket that was inside a jacket that had this material so that you could put your phone inside that pocket and you would be completely blocked off from the rest of the world, at least in terms of like your phone. And sometimes your phone is sort of like your, let's say, the way that...
Source of anxiety or...
Yeah, also that. And also somewhere where people can sort of like, let's say, penetrate your space.
Absolutely.
And they can sort of like, if you want to pull out, or they can still sort of contact you through your phone, and you get sucked up into having to sort of like engage with
Did
that.
you speak to your customers about it? Anyone that bought it and used it, and how did they feel about it?
It's just come out now with
really?
Autumn/Winter 24.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
Fantastic.
I mean we're you know like posing it as an ability and a perspective. I think it's up to people how they want to use it, obviously, but it's there for people to you know, let's say, engage with it and in the ways that they feel.
It's interesting, you know, engaging with the nothingness. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about that shortly, but kind of engaging with the nothingness, engaging with a space that doesn't really exist. It's just you and nothing, you and the world without the phone. I mean, my phone is under my leg, yours is behind you, Lucas is in his pocket. It's interesting. It's so fascinating, our relationship with it. And our relationship without it. I think we need to sort of think about that as well. What does it mean to not have technology here all the time? It's really fascinating.
And regarding mental health again, you are doing a lot in that direction. You are talking a lot about topics that for other people are a bit difficult to deal with. And for example, your experiences with addiction, and also all the donation you made to mental health centers, and you as well, you're going to become a therapist soon, so
Yes.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So can you tell me a little bit
I
more
think
about
we've got a good advantage. Firstly, that we have, you know, we're in a partnership and a relationship for many years, and I think that the fashion is just the byproduct of our conversation, of our creative dialogue together. So, you know, we come to fashion already having spoken about a lot of these things, and we bring a lot of the honesty and authenticity to JORDANLUCA, and I think that's what I think makes it unique, and I think that's what makes every fashion brand, because I think fashion without conversation, fashion without question is just clothes. Modern art, I think, without question is probably just like a bit of metal table or some sticks on the floor, or whatever that art might be. But with the conversation, you create the fashion, you create the talk, you create this thing, and fashion is the conversation. So I think without that, I think it doesn't really mean anything. It's just clothes, and nobody needs clothes.
I think that's what people buy, the idea of.
I say nobody needs clothes. I think nobody needs more clothes, because we've already got enough of them. I do absolutely see, of course, you know, the clothes and the fashion and the art of making clothes, which I love, as the kind of medium for bringing people together. And I think ultimately that's what, you know, Luca and I work very differently. Luca is very much about the process, the creative process, in terms of working in the studio, working on the clothes, working on the garment, on the suiting. I'm much more fascinated, and I've always been really fascinated about what brings people together. Why are they buying clothes, and why are they not buying clothes? So I'm kind of more interested in maybe fashion as an event, also fashion as a physical event. That's why, you know, I tend to like the fashion show. For example, I know that Luca tends to like the process of the fashion show. And you know, as Marina Abramovic said, you know, the art is just the ashes of the process. So we work quite
That's
differently
true.
on that.
And that's great. I have two more, actually three. So what's the worst part of working in fashion? What you would like to change like first?
I think the struggle is that fashion is a bit of a paradox, especially right now, because I think it's an industry that want you to be creative and bring newness, and you know, and be in this cultural moment. And you know, every time that you do a show or a presentation, you have all this press sitting there and criticizing in good and bad what you're doing. So you constantly feel this pressure to bring something new, something that can possibly change, something that in our case can create a conversation, right? But then on the other side, you have Excel sheets and trimester turnarounds and year turnarounds and how much do you do this month and all this stuff, and you know, and it's very tough. It's very tough because, you know, both are very important, and you are in this loop and you don't know what to prioritize. Is one or the other, or is it both? How can it be both? Can it be both? I don't know. And I think that this is what everyone is struggling right now. And I think I always call it a bit like optimistic terrorism, you know, like this message. I was reading a very interesting article the other day where this constant message of glamorizing the struggle, you know, and this constant message of telling that we need this because it has to be new, because it has to be cool. But at the same time, we're like hurting ourselves because we create this language that has to be new, has to be cool, but it doesn't sell. So we need to suffer because it doesn't sell, but we need to do new because it will be cool, but it doesn't sell. And you're in this vortex that causes lots of pain and mental health, and you know, and this is why I think that fashion is very tough. It's a very, very tough industry. Many industries are tough, but fashion is very tough because you need to be very strong to do that. And we are lucky because we're two, so we can talk to each other all the time, you know, because it's like I don't know how people that are alone can do this. So
A lot of them have some issues, I think.
I mean, one of the biggest questions that we're always asked, we were asked it today, is what advice would you give to new people setting up and starting a fashion brand? I think, well, surround yourself with really strong people because you're going to need them. You're really going to need them. And I think, you know, look to sort of echo what Luca was saying. I think how do you change it from the inside? You know, we're in fashion, we're in it. How do you change that? How do you acknowledge, you know, it's okay to acknowledge it, but how do we change it? You know, maybe I can't answer that now, but it's interesting what happened after COVID, you know, again, talking about COVID with many open letters and saying, you know, this is the way the industry is going to be, and this is what the industry is going to look like, and let's steer the industry together with this new language, with this new vocabulary. Let's do it all together. And how quickly that message and that language is integrated back into the old system. So
yeah,
I think it's an interesting, again, you know, it's an interesting paradox that we're in. That we have to accept what the industry is, what the industry wants, but again, really wanting to change it and really having a longing to wanting to do something different. But I guess that's part of the joy. That's part of the beauty of trying to do something new every time, I guess. So we're kind of always chasing our tail, but I think ultimately, it's very important to take a step back. And you know, you mentioned about therapy, but I think I've kind of come to this post-COVID, post thing, many wars and stuff. And I think, for me, just personally, I think it's really an interesting journey to wanting to step into something that feels, it doesn't, not that I would say it's more or less fulfilling, but a different area of my life that enriches me in a different way. And I love bringing that into, try to talk about that within fashion, because, you know, fashion it brings people together, and I think we have a duty and responsibility to create joy and to create a conversation between community.
Damn, we're getting deep here.
It is deep. I didn't expect. I'm going to start
should have
crying.
expected,
Talking
guys. Come on.
beyond
I'm gonna start
fashion, we're like in a fucking therapy session here.
What do you think about it
You're
then?
gonna make me cry. No, I mean, I think it's amazing to hear these guys just say these things because it rings so true to me as well. And it's interesting because we have completely different backgrounds and we have completely different perspectives. We live in different places of the world, but we still have some of the same struggles. And we still see some of the same issues and we still see some of the same perspectives on these things. So that's super interesting. And I love, Luca, your, the idea of the vortex that you go through and what you were saying about struggling with, on this side you have the Excel sheets, on this side you have the people who are telling you to do something, on this side you have what you want to do, and it's like, which path do you go down? And I feel like fashion is such an interesting and exciting space because there's so many paths that you can go down. But at the same time, it's also a struggle because you're competing on so many different levels, right? It's not just like, you just have this way and then you know exactly what you're competing in. There's this one race that you all gotta, go for. You're competing against like other people as well who have a different race, but you have to mentally put yourself out of like the context of comparing yourself and other people comparing you to somebody that you're not even in a race with. But you have to take that in, and people saying like, oh, okay, but these guys, they do this, and it's like, you don't understand. We're not even in the same like field. And it's like also other people saying like, yeah, but I can just get that, whatever it might be, like that, those pair of jeans, I saw them at a cheaper price and in another, it's like, yeah, but they're not this, they might be the same visually, but like the way that, like all of the thoughts and all of the content, all of these things that go into making this versus making this is just like so different. But we chose this as well, like we have to live with those rules of the game, and that's what makes it both interesting, exciting, but also a huge struggle sometimes that you are being compared and have to compare yourself with what is in the industry. I mean, you had certain definitions that can, like now you see, okay, this is fast fashion, this is high fashion, this is contemporary fashion, this is couture, and we know those as definitions. So we know, like, okay, we're not competing with necessarily all of these ranges, but the consumer might not know that there is a difference between those different, like directions. And we, sometimes get caught up in comparing ourselves to things that we might not be, well off comparing ourselves to.
Well, it's difficult because, I think we can intellectualize as much as we want, but when the buyer that doesn't know who you are, or a customer that says, but who are you like? What is it like? I'm like, okay, fine. It's a bit like this or a bit like this. I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
And then of course that's what, you're always stuck with these other designers as adjectives. You become an adjective in a way,
Totally, yeah. But it's also because it's easier for people to digest if they have like a reference point and they can sort of pinpoint you out from that reference point. But I mean, it's also our, let's say, objective and like as designers to say like, no, we're not this or we're not that. We're not comparable to these guys or those. We want to be our own and consistently just speak our own language so that we shape that thing that we, like makes us us.
Okay. It was a long conversation, deep, very deep. Thank you all, really, for talking so genuinely with us. And that's it. That was The Shape of Innovations with JORDANLUCA and EMIL.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.